What's up, everybody? Sea Panther back again. Uh, Sorry for the long delay between videos. It's been pretty busy for me with work and whatnot, um, and it's a little hard to find the motivation to do these sometimes. Honestly, I'll admit. But my last, excuse me, my last video, I talked about Metacham. I think is the best BL fighter, or it was BL at the time, and I did allude to maybe like its use in high play, seeing it rise to OU. And wouldn't you know, Metacham did in fact rise to OU not too long ago, about a few weeks ago, in fact. And with that said, there's actually another BL that I think is honestly stronger than Metacham. And I think the tournament um, usage reflects that, especially in this last JI and even in SBL. In SBL, Metacham and Raikou had about on par usage, but Metacham, of course, did have that one really impressive game from McMegan, highlighted in my last video, that really kind of acted as the showcase for it. Um, but Raikou in JI actually kind of blew away Metacham in terms of usage. It was used considerably more, and I think that's for a good reason. In the post that I made on this, that's on your screen right now, I really go into detail about how Raikou matches up really well into Classico, which is probably, arguably, the most common team in the meta right now. I mean, it's a very classic team. I mean, it's named El Clasico for a reason, right? But with that being said, a lot of the principles that El Clasico follows in terms of how to deal with electrics, like Zapdos, for example, is through positioning. And when you have something like Raikou, which has Substitute and Calm Mind, it really reverses that ability. Like Arrow normally would be great into Raikou, right? Uh, but if Raikou has a sub up, obviously Arrow is in a bad spot. It can't just click EQ because it'll drop to people. And Tyranitar on those teams is often tasked to check quite a lot of stuff, or even DD early in the game, so it might not be healthy enough to check Raikou long term. But it's not only Classico that follows these kind of principles. There's a lot of teams in ADV that follow these kind of more offensive position based um, styles, I guess, uh, where a mon like Raikou can kind of throw a wrench in that. Uh, I'll show you a team that's similar. It's not exactly Classico, right? But it kind of follows similar principles in how it operates. Where right here. So this team, as you can see, it doesn't have Aerodactyl, doesn't have Gengar, right? But in terms of how it's similar to Classico, is there's no true special check. Like the Jirachi is an offensive Jirachi. And that really, it kind of plays toward a game of positioning where you're getting your threats in and you just don't give these offensive electrics like opposing Zapdos time to really do damage. You trade into it, or you just try to outposition it long term. But Raikou throws a really big wrench in something like this as well. And you do have Metagross here, which is a little better than, say, Aerodactyl in terms of checking Raikou. You don't just drop to T-Bolt if it's behind a sub, but if it's boosted, most Metagrosses are 2-hit KO, and like Swampert, if it's boosted, can't take a hidden power grass. So it gets really difficult for teams like this to handle Raikou, and that also goes in line with the like Arrow B teams, like Celebi and Arrow. So it's not just Classico that Raikou really, really is strong into. It's kind of this whole style of teams that are heavily momentum based. You could probably even group Jolteon teams into that mix as well. Although Jolteon granted runs Roar, so it is a little more solid. But like Celebi being the only electric check on the Skarm Arrow V teams really makes Raikou very strong, especially Hidden Power Ice or Crunch. And we'll go over some sets. So this is kind of like the classic Raikou max speed, max special attack, Subcom Mind with Hidden Power Grass. You know, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is like the classic set. It's the one that you load in on Smogon if you're looking for a set, right? And this set is just really, really good into those teams like I mentioned. Obviously, the grass version is not necessarily going to hurt Celebi as much, but you can run Hidden Power Ice there. There's also a bulkier version, and what this lets you do, which is pretty interesting, sorry, the calc loads, is if you look here, Blissey Ice Beam from Calm Mind Blissey doesn't break your substitute. So outside of Sand, this Raikou can actually 1v1 Calm Mind Blissey. You actually just stall out Ice Beams, and you get a lot of chances to fish for crit. Obviously, when it gets down to Thunderbolts, it's not going to be breaking your sub like basically at all. It's going to take 3 Thunderbolts. So this is a really, really deadly set versus a very common Blissey set right now. Calm Mind Blissey gets slapped onto a lot of teams these days where probably not the best. It acts more like a band-aid, but then you run into something like Raikou and suddenly that band-aid is not very effective, right? But another set that's kind of getting some popularity is this set right here with Crunch. And like I was saying, this set absolutely destroys those Skarm B teams. This one obviously isn't going to be as great into Arrow because you don't have that substitute buffer. But the Skarm B, like the Hydro Pump Mence one that Frudazi made common with Gengar and Salamence, like this Raikou absolutely dumpsters that team. And it's still something you see very commonly. I think this set is just really underrated. Crunch being able to hit Claydol even harder is pretty nice. It lets you get ranges that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. And of course, the number one reason is to be able to hit Celebi really hard while still running grass coverage. And of course, it also has the benefit of hitting Gengar harder than Thunderbolt. Not by a ton though. Maybe if it's an offensive Gengar, it might eke out a KO where Thunderbolt might miss, but I think versus a lot of offensive Gengar, plus 1 Thunderbolt probably just KOs a lot of the time anyway. But yeah, that is Raikou. I think that, well, it's very, very strong right now. I think I've been using it a ton in my revival run last year. It was in my top 15 usage. And in this JI, it's been used quite a lot throughout the whole tournament. I think probably the most used BL. I didn't cross-check that, but I'd be willing to bet it was used like pretty frequently. Maybe something like Registeel was used slightly more, or yeah, probably around. But I think Raikou was probably the most used BL, if I had to guess, which is really saying something. It is former OU, right? And it wasn't really seeing tournament usage. And so it dropped naturally. And I remember BKC had a video, it's probably like 3 or 4 years old at this point, but it talks about using Raikou as like a sub-toxic lead, not even with CM sometimes. And I think that was definitely a product of the meta at the time. The meta has gone through quite a lot of changes since then, namely the inclusion of fire types and these really offensive team structures that follow similar principles as Classico. That's kind of had a resurgence happen for Raikou. And in my opinion, I think it is stronger than Metachan. I don't think by a ton, right? But if I had to rank the BLs prior to Metachan's rise, I would have definitely ranked Raikou ahead of it. So I think it's deserving of OU. I think the tournament usage reflects that, especially in the slash JI. Like if we check, I think I listed the amount of times it was used. Yeah, right here. So in Invitational 2, Raikou saw play 19 times total, as opposed to just Metacham's 7 uses, which I don't think that is fully updated um, as of the last few weeks, but I know for a fact that Raikou is actually used in finals of Invitational 2, so you can add another time for Raikou, and I don't think Metacham got any use in those last few weeks, so yeah, with that, I'll show you guys some replays of tournaments. This was the final smash I was just alluding to right now. We will turn this on fast. And music off. I hope you guys like the Naruto music. I'm a big Naruto fan, so I figured I'd throw some Naruto music on today. But these are two very well-known players. This is in Invitational Finals, of course. Shitrock Enjoyer is Rudazi, and Fakes is Fakes, of course. So let's get into it. Metagross and Skarm lead. Probably a choice spam Metagross based off that. And then here comes Raikou, immediately threatening, just throwing out a Thunderbolt. So Blissey revealed and shows T-Wave, which is pretty notable. Could probably see Metagross Boom here, yep. So Skarm is limited to one spike, and a Breloom comes out. So definitely looking like it's probably a spikeless structure for Fakes, and that's honestly what I think Raikou is best on, although we're going to look at some other replays that show it on spikes, which I think is a pretty new and cool thing that people are doing with Raikou. It never really saw use on spikes like that before, and it was pretty much only used with like Dugtrio on CM Spam. But I think with the new innovations it's seeing a lot of use on mixed offense, which is usually Dougless and Trapless in general, sometimes with like Pursuit Tar. But I think that is what's really driving this boom in Raikou. People like Fudazi and Fakes here, he actually used that a lot. Great EQ there, catching the Snorlax. Wonder if this is a dead Schlax. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's just Curse 3 attacks. And will a Milo Surf get there? Not quite. So Milo is down. Just goes for a hidden power, assuming flying. It's probably some kind of DD Mence. Maybe this is a Ice Beamless Blissey? Probably looks like it, considering they elect a Seismic Toss there. But it is looking like Loom is going to eventually come in here. Yeah. And it's just that threat of the Raikou. It kind of had to keep Blissey around no matter what. And at this point, Raikou would just KO the Blissey. The crit, not necessarily. I think it does like 19%. And even if the Claydol wakes here, which it doesn't, Raikou's just going to clean up. And so this was not a Sandless matchup, but when you do see these V5 teams, you know, oftentimes they are Sandless. So if you have a way to remove Doug, what I've done with Raikou is Mach Punch Breloom and Pursuit Metagross. So when Doug comes into trap Breloom, you can Mach Punch it into range of Metagross's Pursuit, and then Raikou is kind of free to run havoc on these kind of teams. There's another one. This one was by Behe, and this was in Revival 2. In the bracket round, I believe probably top 16. Let's get into it. So Metacham lead here. There is the other now OUmon, former BL, that we're discussing a little bit here. And this is kind of a great metagame showcase game. It put in quite a lot of work there. Tripped to Metagross, did a lot of damage to Skarm. Ooh. And the Starmie does catch the Skarmory with a T-Wave. Blissey just selects a T-Wave of its own. Probably skip ahead a little bit. So probably maybe a Magneton team or some kind of spikeless, trapless offense from H over L. And Blissey, or sorry, Behe, clearly a Spikes team, no Tyranitar yet. Gets to the point where H over L looks like they're in a really good position here. And they just focus punch the Blissey, so probably clicking counter there. Which, pretty fair. If they did click Brick Break, they might have lived 1 if they're bold. Not sure exactly what the spread was. And H over L in a really commanding position, right? There's very few mons here that are ever going to be able to make a comeback. But out comes Raikou. And it just hidden powers. It shows hidden power ice, but Swampert is low. Gengar Destiny Bonds. And this is an important play here. Technically, these Pokemon have the same speed. Right? However, a lot of defensive Starmie, which is the Thunder Wave, Surf, Rapid Spin, Recover sets, don't run max speed. I mean, most of the time they don't. They're usually around 352 to outspeed max speed Gengar, and to be able to run a little bit of special attack for bulk to 2-hit KO T-Tar. So this is kind of an interesting play, because if Raikou subs, Starmie breaks the sub with Surf. However, if it Calm Minds on a Surf, then now it can sub and the game's kind of over at that point. The Starmie basically had to get this right, and they could have something like a T-Tar Snorlax here. I think it's possible. However, we'll see how this plays out. And there's the sub. At this point, Hidden Power is going to definitely 2-hit KO, even after Protect shenanigans. And Raikou looks like in a good spot. So unless there's a last, and it shows Magneton, so not the last you really want to see, Thunderbolt does not break sub. And Raikou can just continue to sub here. Might keep Calm Minding, yep. And sub doesn't even break after 2 now. And this game looks pretty much over. Now say if this was like a Snorlax, if this was like say a Snorlax on this team, then this would have been completely different. But since Celebi was the only special check, despite that commanding lead, I think Behe was only down to like 3 Pokemon while H over L had all 6. And Raikou just completely reverse sweeps. And this is a cool example of it on Spikes. You know, there was a Magneton, didn't even need to be going to, because the Medicham basically took care of the Skarm. However, this just shows how deadly this is in Sandless. I mean, Sand would have definitely helped out there a lot with Magneton breaking the sub. I think with Sand, maybe the sweep isn't possible, or he just barely is able to eke it out at very low health, but certainly wouldn't have completely won the game like that. And that just goes to show how good Raikou is. I mean, these Celebi teams are just taking advantage. I know I was talking about Aerobi, but this also goes in hand with teams like this, like these Magneton Celebi teams that don't run Snorlax. They really struggle into Raikou as well, and offensive waters, which is pretty notable. Like this team is absolutely shredded by Suicune and Starmie itself. But yeah, that was a very cool team by Bihi. I thought it was very creative and really, really impressive comeback. We'll get into the last one. This was also in Revival. Subs Neat is Jumpy, and you'll all know ABR at this point. But we'll get into this one as well. So Solomon's on 40 lead. ABR definitely known for his unconventional leads and just boldly spikes in the face of a Salamence. Lead often is mixed, so pretty scary there. And Arrow just selects Rock Slide. Pretty smart going into the Suicune. Suicune's already very low. So I'd say Jumpy's in a really commanding position here at this point. Let's see if Fori has a counter or something. That's probably its best way to deal with this. No, just selects the slide again and goes to Donphan. So that's really going to shut down Arrow. Rock Slide only doing a 9% as it just goes for a Hidden Power Rock, I'm assuming. And Suicune comes out to Roar the Celebi. Donphan back out again. And there is 3 layers for Suicune. Okay, so SD probably Leech Recover Sword Stance. Last is clearly Baton Pass, so can't actually touch the Suicune. And every time it clicks Leech Seed there, just burning 2 versus the Suicune. Mag comes out. It is a little too late considering the Fortress on 26. Maybe that indicates that Mag is Hidden Power Grass. I guess it could be considering that Celebi is attackless. And Suicune's actually just putting in work here with the Roar. It's just kind of chipping everything and a fully revealed team for Jumpy. ABR just electing to let Suicune go down with the sack, and Raikou's in, and look how devastating Raikou is here. If it gets a sub up, the Arrow can't check it, Tar can't check it, Metagross can't really check it with spikes up. Like, really, really, really strong into this kind of team. And just goes to show these sub Raikous just absolutely destroy these Arrow B teams. And Rain Dance Blissey is really interesting. Yeah, now Raikou is out of sand, and Dusclops comes out. So very, very unorthodox team for ABR. Actually, fully grounded team. The Wisp does land. So at this point, if Raikou comes in again, and gets a sub up, this game could be over. Especially if it comes in on the Celebi and doesn't get leech seeded. This could be the turn to bring Raikou in right now. Yep. And Jumpy elects to sack his Mag so that Raikou can't get a free turn. But Donphan's probably going to come in here. Oh, and Blissey just comes in. Probably going to T-Wave. Yep, just Seismic tosses into range of Raikou, I'm guessing. Probably T-Wave here. Nope. Meteor Mash is not going to KO here. Don't know if it really mattered. I think Raikou just like the T-Bolt. Can't really sub. Even a burned Silence EQ probably break. And bold T-Bolt there. Maybe a bulky enough Raikou to actually take an Arrow Earthquake. Certainly possible. Knowing ABR, who knows. But look how strong Raikou was there. And especially as soon as the rain dance went up and it started healing, there's almost no shot. As soon as it got in on the Celebi and got a sub up, paired with spikes, all the things that traditionally come into Raikou just got to a KO'd. So I think this just is another really good example of how good Raikou is into the meta. I mean, the teams that I showed in these replays, I wanted to purposely show that they weren't even like Classico or the Classico S Spikes teams. These were all spikeless teams. Well, except for this one, but this is very, very different than Classico. And my reasoning for that was I did harp on why it's really good into the Classico-esque themes, and for good reason because they're so common. But it's also very strong into quite a large variety of other teams. As you can see, Celebi kind of just gets dumpstered by Raikou, and it's not something that um, people really talk about all too much. You don't really see a lot of bulky Combine Celebis, which is maybe the one that could contend with Raikou one-on-one. So all the really common sets just struggle to deal with it. And it really gives Raikou a lot of ways to play into its checks. And like as you saw here, paired with spikes, Kitar and Metagross just came in normally to be able to check it fine, but just got to a KO'd, and that was it. Then the position battle was lost for Jumpy here. And I think it's really easy to set these kind of situations up with Raikou, just granted with how common those kind of teams are in the meta and the Classico-esque teams. But yeah, guys, this has been my thoughts on Raikou. Let me know what you guys think. This was kind of a rambling vid, maybe a little longer than my normal. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I think Raikou deserves to be OU. I've heard rumors that it might get a rise soon, so we'll see how that goes. I hope it does. But with that, guys, I will catch y'all next time. I actually have another video coming out soon that I've already recorded, so probably expect that in like 2 days. Don't want to post them back to back. But yeah, I was feeling motivated today and decided to pump them out. But I'll catch y'all later. Peace.